We try to start right on time, and we really appreciate your being here. One of the big things when I do these workshops is that I watch the little guy eating things. But we always have entertainment here, which is always cool. But ultimately, I want to get within this half an hour of time that we spend together, information to you that you can actually use, that you can actually go out and say, okay, this is what I've learned, or it's a piece of information that you have open enough to listen to and hear. And one of the big things about this is that being here and looking at don't be sorry. Being here and looking at these topics, this is a big one. This is a very emotionally charged topic, okay? Because especially nowadays, because there's so many people now that are saying yay or nay to vaccinations. It really, honestly, all I ask people is to have an open mind when they're talking about this stuff, because the thing is, you have to be able to open up the conversation. Your healing and your process of healing is different than, it's different than just having, it's different than just saying, okay, let me get a quick fix and then it's done. I was talking about this morning on the radio with Peter St. James, and talk. Did he poke himself in the?
He walked into the wall.
It's okay. So in talking with Peter this morning, he was asking me about the people that come in, okay, the people that come in and want that quick fix, and and it's after 30 or 40 years of a problem, they want it fixed like this. And I say to them, I go, this is a process. This is something different. You have to really look at it differently. So, having said that, I want you to have an open mind about this. This is not, okay, get a vaccination, don't get a vaccination. This is just learning what these things do and how our immune function actually works. Last month, when we did the vaccination workshop, it was more of the history of vaccinations and where they came from. This time we're going to talk about how the body's immune function works. Interestingly enough, I do some muscle testing sometimes. I don't know if anybody has ever seen muscle testing at all. But I was doing it with someone to show them that when I test for their supplements to see if they work for them or if they're healthy for them, that how something can go weak. So basically, the basics of it is you test somebody's arm, okay, or leg, or it depends on the strong muscle in their body. And then if you give them something that weakens their body, the muscle weakens. Okay, it's a reflex that happens. So I did it with sugar. Okay, sugar it immediately depresses your immune function, and if you put a little bit under your tongue, the muscle just completely collapses. It's in about 95% of the people it works. You're making a face. I can demonstrate. No. I can demonstrate it. It's an odd thing to see. But there's like, is he okay?
Yeah, he's walking to the wall.
Because his head, because he's bumping the head. So the big thing here is you really have to look at how you can strengthen your immune function. For example, it doesn't matter, like my dog right now has osteosarcoma, so he has cancer, and they want, there's not really much you can do. It's a bone cancer. They gave him 6 to 12 months, and either way, either he's taking medications or chemo, or they lop off his leg. They lop off his leg for pain relief, okay? But that's the only thing they can do. They can't, it's still going to spread, regardless of what it is. So the thing is, ultimately, we're trying to make him comfortable, and what we're doing is we're trying to boost his immune system with certain supplements and everything. And I've adjusted him his whole life, and he's still healthy. He still runs around, he still plays with, with his sister. And until he's not, he's not able to do that anymore, we just try to make him function better. So immunity is a huge word in our society now. And ultimately, when they say vaccination, they sort of coincide that with, oh, now you're immune to whatever it is. But how many people growing up had to get booster shots? Why? Because because you're not immune, right, exactly. So I always start with the definitions of what these things. Immunity, the definition is the ability to resist a particular toxin by the action of specific antibodies, immunity to like typhoid or something like that. So what happens is, in your blood system you build what they call a titer, and the antibodies to that particular infection or whatever it is in your body, and then when it recognizes it, it fights it off. That's why they say it's important that when you're a child that you're exposed to a lot of stuff, so this way you can build the immune function of your body. One of the best things that you can do for a child is, if you can, especially within the first few months of their birth, is breastfeed them. Because there's IgAs, which is immunoglobulins that are for the intestinal tract that help build the immune function through the intestinal tract. Okay, and it's all controlled through the neurology, it's all controlled through everything that we think and do, okay, and what we're exposed to. But ultimately, that's the first level of immunity that you have. So those are the things that you look at. It's the quality or state of being immune, especially a condition of being able to resist a particular disease, especially through preventing development of pathogenic microorganisms or by counteracting the effect of its products. Protection or exemption from something, especially an obligation or penalty, immunity from prosecution. So I just threw that in there because that's the law term of it. So it sort of gets, so it sort of gives you a difference of the way that people look at it. But there's an immune function that we have in our bodies that allows us to stay healthy. So again, I was talking to somebody this morning. I was having a meeting with some local businesses, and in doing so, one of the gentlemen turned around to me and he goes, "Have you avoided the flu that's going around? Or did you get the flu yet?" That's what he said to me. And I said, "What do you mean, did I get the flu yet?" I go in January, I was sick for a day or so, and then that was it. Okay. But he goes, because there's a bad flu going around. I go, right. What does that have to do with anything? Because you could be sitting at the table with 7 people, and they could all, quote unquote, have the flu, but yet, like say, for instance, if Dave had symptoms, it might be congestion in his nose. And then if you, Erin, had some symptoms, maybe it's in your chest. And then maybe for you, it's intestinal. I mean, they're all different. Why is it it's the same bug coming in, but we're having different reactions to it? It's where the strengths are in our body and how strong our immune function is. Now, if you are exposing yourself to it on a consistent basis, and your body finally gets fatigued, it's going to get fatigued, okay? And also the things that you put in, and that's what some of the other workshops will talk about. So this is the definitions of what immunity is about. There are different types of immunity that we have, okay? It's pretty straightforward, okay? There's natural immunities, acquired active, acquired passive, and artificial, acquired active and acquired passive. So what's the difference? First question I have for you, which one do you think is better?
The natural.
The natural, right? Okay, and that's very, very important to understand, because that is a response that's generated by being exposed to something, okay? So you're directly exposed to it. So as you get older, you usually get less and less colds, okay? If you look, more people, as they get older, they get less and less colds, because there is hundreds of different rhino and coronaviruses that cause a cold. There's no cure for the common cold, okay? So as you're exposed to more and more, your body learns how to fight them, and learns how to fight and fight those things off. Okay, so that's a natural acquired active immunity type. But what is the first line of defense in our immune function, on our bodies?
Health.
Health is, health obviously, eating properly, those
like
are,
a body part?
but what is it that body part wise, what is it, or system wise, what is it that's
Your
the,
lymphatics.
lymphatics is not the first,
It's not, I thought it was like your tongue, well not, no, your
it's your
tonsils.
skin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's your skin is your first defense against any pathogen. Okay, that's the first line of defense in immunity, okay, because your skin, because if you go to a hospital, okay, people get, you have staph aureus on your skin right now. Have you ever heard of staph infection? Okay, And you go to the hospital, staph infection runs rampant, and they're giving you vancomycin, which is like the most abusive of antibiotics that you could ever have, because it just destroys your system completely. But the thing is, what happens is certain people, their immune functions are so depressed that the Staph aureus starts to eat away or attack them. Okay, we don't have all that stuff on our skin. So the first thing is exposure. That's why they say letting a kid play in the dirt is good. Okay, I used to eat mud pies. You know, not that I always wanted to, but I mean, but the thing is, and I'm not condoning, okay, go out and eat mud, you know, but because there's actually a disease called pica where you actually crave stuff like that, okay? But the thing is, but the kids need to be outside being exposed to these things, and what we've done is we've tried to make everything antiseptic, okay? You know, yes, you know, one of the biggest things that helped us to keep people from getting sick, you know, especially surgically, was washing your hands. Yes, you have to wash your hands, but not with antibacterial soap. You just have to keep your hands clean of the organisms that are going on. As a matter of fact, that came about because what used to happen was the doctors in England used to work in the morgue, and then they would go downstairs and do surgery, okay, without washing their hands or doing anything. They would just go right to surgery because they wouldn't even think about infection, okay? But the thing is, if you're going right from something like that and then going to someone who's getting a surgery, that person who has surgery is already immunocompromised. You need to make sure you're clean, okay? So the thing is, their immune function is not going to be as high as someone who's healthy. So being healthy is important, but the skin is the first contact. Then comes in the mucous membranes. Okay, so when you're when you're exposed to antigens, okay, and we talk a little bit about this at the asthma and allergy class, but when you're exposed to all the allergy antigens that are out there, you know, all the things that are going to be cropping up soon, what ends up happening is the mucous membranes get clogged up. Okay, for some people more so because they're hypersensitive to some of the things that are out there. There's a reason for that, because what happens is if it bypasses the mucous membrane, it then goes into your chest, and then you're breathing it, and then you can disperse it through your body. Okay, but then your chest starts to get congested. Okay, and then you're supposed to cough, which is natural. Okay, because those are the functions that happen. But once it bypasses and goes into your body, that's when the lymph and the antibodies start coming into play. Okay, but you can, like, they have something called the thymus tap, where you just tap your thymus, which is a gland that sits right in here. In us, it's much smaller in comparison. In a child, it's huge in comparison to their body. But if you tap it, it helps to release the antibodies that are within our body, and it allows to just start. So there's some craniosacral techniques that I use to help boost immune function periodically. And sometimes when you get adjusted, you'll spike a fever. Okay, the reason is because, is a fever bad or is it good? It's good for you, okay? It's actually good, you know, and it's very hard for a fever to get to a point where it's going to cause seizures, okay, or cause death. I mean, brain damage doesn't happen until 108 degrees, okay? And it's unnatural for your body to get to that level unless you're fully septic, okay? Unless the infection is in your blood from some other reason or what have you. So the thing is, you could run 104, 105 fever and it's perfectly normal. The problem is if it lasts for a long, long period of time. Okay, you have, in most cases, some kids will spike fevers really high, and then all of a sudden the next day it'll drop. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen. And as a matter of fact, that's what's happened with my children, and that's what happens with me now. I get a fever for like a day, next day I'm beat up, but my body's fine. Okay, so the fever is there for a reason, it's responding. So it is a response to some sort of invader into the body. So the body is not doing anything wrong. So acquired active is actively being approached by it or being infected by it. Passive is, what do you think passive is? How do you think you're getting passive?
Would it be like asymptomatic, like you get it but you don't know?
It's more of something that's like passed through mother's milk.
Okay.
Or pass through, you know, immunity that is within the family, can actually be passed generation to generation. You know, there are certain infections and things, you know, as you strengthen the genetics of the body, that immune function, you'll actually have a natural titer to it. Artificial acquired active is vaccinations. Those are the things that you're looking at, and those are the things that that you wanna understand. And acquired passive is same thing, like you'll get it because you were exposed to it, that's to somebody that was vaccinated. Okay, as a matter of fact, polio, people always talk about polio, but the only wild cases of polio that have really been reported is people that were exposed to the feces of young children who had taken the oral polio vaccine. Okay, because it was a live attenuated virus, okay, and that's the thing. So acquired active usually has a live virus associated with. The passive is usually attenuated or partially dead, okay, and it creates a process. So those are big things that we're going to look at, and I'm going to look at the differences of how a vaccination, natural versus artificial, responds in the body, because there's different responses in there. There's two different types of processes that we go through when we have a reaction to something. I'm gonna go past that for a second. These are the pathways. If you want a copy of this, I'll give it to you, and I will go through explaining some of the things. So I want to go through these forms before I go back, and then I'll go back. Herd immunity is sort of. Has anybody ever heard of herd immunity? You have. Oh, Right. Okay. What happens is a form of immunity that occurs when a significant portion of population or herd provides a measure of protection for individuals who have not developed the immunity. So they're saying that this is a form of passive immunity. Okay. So their argument for vaccinations is if you give enough people a vaccination, like 90% of the population or whatever it is, that the rest of the population should be immune to it also. That doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen, because the thing is, it's a very individualistic thing, even though genetically things can change, but it's a very individualistic thing. It rises when a high percentage of population is protected against a virus or bacteria, making it difficult for a disease to spread, because there's so few susceptible people left to infect. So interestingly enough, who remembers, I think it was about a year ago now, this whole scare in, where was it, Disneyland or Disney World or something like that? What was it, measles?
Yes.
It was a measles outbreak, okay? The only people that were getting infected were people that were vaccinated.
Every single one of them was vaccinated.
Every single one of them was vaccinated. Okay, so if the vaccine works, why are they getting the measles? Why are they getting it? It doesn't make sense to me. And so they panic, saying that everybody needs to be vaccinated, and those people that are not vaccinated, oh my God, they're going to become carriers. But I don't understand the concept here, because if your body's immune function is working, you get the measles. I had the measles when I was a kid. I had the chicken pox when I was a kid. Okay, guess what? You know what happens? This is what happens. I'm not sure what the next slide is right now, because I went out of order, but let me just check something here, because I have some other thing. Okay, no, that's the one. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the slide that I just had up there. Humoral versus cell mediated, and this is important to understand. So if you have someone who gets a vaccine, what happens is it raises the titer of the blood, okay, blood titer, and helps to resist against whatever it is for a short period of time. So as we were growing up, the common was somewhere, like every year we got a booster, but it's like every 7 years or so the effectiveness of the blood titer starts to drop. So they say, okay, you need a booster shot, so they give you another one. So it goes sort of like this throughout your lifetime, okay? When you get it naturally, when you're exposed to it naturally and you heal from it naturally, and one of the big things about people, these diseases can be deadly. Not really, okay? Not really. If you know what to look for and how to take care of it, the problem is they want to give the responsibility to somebody else. Let somebody else take care of it. I don't want to worry about getting this quote-unquote communicable disease or whatever it may be. So if you look at, if you get it naturally, what ends up happening is your blood titer, once it responds, it goes up and stays that way for the rest of your life. The only disease, one of the only ones that's really, that can come back like a vengeance is shingles.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had,
Yeah, and herpes zoster, and it's usually stress related. Okay, it's usually stress related, and what happens is because herpes zoster attaches itself to the neurology, and it's usually like one area. It'll like be one rib, or it'll be on the face, or it'll be one dermatome. It attacks one specific dermatome.
very
And
painful.
It is, it's very painful. I know a couple of people actually that we took care of here that had it, and they did great with adjustments, because once we, but the thing is, but your immunity is still there. So now they're giving you a vaccine for shingles, which makes no sense. Okay, because you've already got the stuff. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it, but what's happening now is they're giving kids chickenpox vaccines, and guess what's happening? They're getting shingles at like the age of like 9 or 10. Because what happens is the effectiveness, yeah, now think about a kid that age getting it. It's bad enough when an adult gets it. Okay, think about giving a kid a chickenpox vaccine, and what's happening is that the effectiveness of the vaccine wears off after several years, okay, because it's not natural, it's artificial. And what ends up happening is all of a sudden now the kid gets under a stress situation, and for a kid, stress is, you know, is different, you know?
Worrying about
Stephanie?
what they're gonna eat for lunch.
You know, yeah, you know, yes, exactly. You know, so is Thomas with Stephanie?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
he was just not.
That was very nice of her.
Yeah, very nice.
So the thing is, this is really important to understand. There's another aspect to this. This what we call humoral and cell mediated immunity. What ends up happening is humoral immunity involves the B cells. These produce antibodies that binding to foreign antigens, flagging them so that they can be engulfed by macrophages, a type of white blood cell that digests foreign. Macrophage just means eat. Phage means phagia is eating. Happens outside the cell, and cell-mediated happens inside the cell. In humoral, the helper T secrete B cells, which secrete plasma cells, which secrete antibodies, which immobilize the infected cell. Cell-mediated immunity involves the T cells. These cells are involved in hand-to-hand battle with the foreign disease-causing agents. They activate macrophages to carry out engulfing in other cells called T lymphocytes. In cell-mediated, the helper T cells secretes cytotoxic. Cytotoxic means toxic to a cell. Cytotoxic cells. So I just read a lot of gobbledygook to you guys, and it's like, what? Who? T cells, B cells? The simple aspect of it is this. The vaccine is a humoral response and works mostly with T helper 2 cells. The natural here is a cell-mediated, as a Th1 response, okay? So if you look here, the cell-mediated has cytotoxic effect on the cells that come into the body that are abnormal, and it actually makes them explode and break apart. It just destroys them. This one actually eats the other stuff, but after a while it loses its ability to do that. So what ends up happening is in the humoral vaccine point, what if they bypassed? Thank you, Stephanie. She's having fun with me. What happens in the vaccinated? If you think about a vaccination or getting a shot or taking a pill, what are they bypassing? What 2 defense systems in our body are they bypassing when they give you a shot? Skin and the mucous membranes.
Yeah.
So your body never learns how to respond to them. Your body needs to learn how to respond to those things from that level. So, hi sweetheart. He looks at me like, am I doing something wrong? You know? So it's good. We're almost done. So this is an important aspect of this whole process. When people start talking to me about vaccines, I go, you have to look at the way it's responding. Okay, because the thing is, a natural response is going to give you a lifetime immunity. Okay, And why is that important? Because the nervous system learns how to respond. The neurology is so important. There's actually a study called psychoneuroimmunology, where they look at how the thought processes and the neurology actually affects our immune function. Okay, and this is really, really important to understand in this whole process. He wants mine, he's getting tired. Getting tired. You wanna come up?
What's confusing too is like, every time you look, turn around, they're trying to legislate
Right.
vaccines and mandates.
Right, and that's one of the things that a lot of people are starting to have issues with, because they're actually dictating what you can put in and not put into your body. Okay, and that's wrong. In my mind, that's wrong. Come here, sweetheart. Come here. Okay. Oh, you wanna help me? So ultimately, that's why it becomes such an emotionally charged issue, because what ends up happening is it becomes so emotionally charged that people don't look at the actual facts of what's going on. You know, they just say, oh, it just has to be. It just has to be. And that's why when people come in here, you know, I have a niece, okay? She is 21, okay? She has graduated from high school, but she's autistic, okay? And they're gonna take her, she'll go to college, but you can tell she's autistic. Up until about his age, okay? She was developing at, astronomical rates. I mean, she's hyperlexic, she still reads. She reads books like it's going out of style. And what ended up happening was, one day she came home and she just stopped talking. And she stopped, and it was, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it, okay, but it was around a series of shots. Okay, it was around a series of shots. So at the age of 18 months, she was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, autism. What? You wanna go over there? Where you wanna go? You wanna go to mommy?
I'm your friend.
I changed you, I'm sorry. You know, so the thing is, when I talk about this stuff, I did so much research on this that it became very personal to me, okay? And in being very personal, excuse me, he just wants to, they see that's the way they learn. That's the way they learn. And what happens is, what happened with her was, she was getting all kinds of problems going on, and with those problems, what ended up happening was she needed special, they started special, no, don't open that thing, I don't want it to blind you. She needed special, sorry, I just don't look in there. No, I just don't want him to look in there. No, it's okay, don't worry about it. So the thing was, here I am having a personal experience with this stuff, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? So I started adjusting her unbeknownst to my brother, okay? My brother, I would come home from school, and I had, and I would adjust her, and my mother, who lived 4 blocks away, would, that's okay.
Come on. Say
Um,
goodbye.
Bye-bye, sweetheart. You got all of the other stuff anyway,
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
thank you. But I started adjusting, and my mother would say, you know, one day my brother came home. My brother came home and he goes, where's Caroline? That's my niece's name, okay? And we go, she's napping. And he turned around and looked at my mother and me and said, she never naps. Because that was part of her autism, she never napped. And she actually slept for 2 hours. And so my brother didn't know, so when I got home from school, I started adjusting her, and she went from echolalic, which is just repeating words, to actually cognitive function. She understood what was going on. But you can tell she's autistic, there's definitely something going on, but she's very highly functioning. But, you know, in an autistic child, any change like that is dramatic. And the teachers noticed it. I didn't say anything. At 6 months after I came back from school, you know, I was back for 6 months, my brother looks at me and goes, okay, what are you doing? And I told them. I mean, when I tell people about what I do here, and, you know, a lot of people come in back, neck stuff, and, you know, I'm not saying that I have the heal-all for everything, but if you can remove the interferences that are within the body has this amazing capability to heal. I mean, we have a saying, the power that made the body heals the body. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? You know, I mean, what is it that drives that statement and says to you? Because for me, it's everything I've seen with my family. It's everything I've seen. I've seen people just get healthier, take less medications. You know, it just is different. But people don't want to take the responsibility. It is a responsibility that you have to take for your own health. And it's not about the quick fix that I talked about earlier. You know, if something's been going on for many years, it's not gonna go away overnight, you know? And it doesn't really matter what conditions you have. It doesn't matter what's going on in your body. An unsubluxated or corrected spine that has properly functioning nervous system is gonna function, your body is gonna function better than without it, than with it, I mean. Okay, if you're subluxated, it's not gonna function at 100%. So, yes, are we concerned about aches and pains? Are we concerned about what's going on in your body? Yeah, we are. But honestly, the concern is what I saw with my niece. Because I don't know what would have happened to her if I hadn't tried. Okay? And that's the big thing. That's why if you care about people enough, I'm sure a name comes to your mind, because I know it. People are like, oh, someone can bring them to a workshop. It's an easy way to just say, hey, learn about something. It doesn't mean they need chiropractic care. Oh, I don't believe in chiropractic. Great. Don't believe in chiropractic. Listen to the truth. Because these things that I'm putting up here are true. They're not, okay, this is the way you've got to do it. You have a choice. And most people don't understand that. That's the choice. What choices are you making? And that's the big thing. So thank you very, very much. Half an hour.